Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education. Featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another tutoring tips episode of the Prepped and Polished podcast. Alexis Avila here, Prepped and Polished. Make sure you check out our website, preppedandpolished.com, for more info. And while you're there, you can sign up for our free tips newsletter. Comes out monthly. And join our community on Facebook, Twitter. Just search for Prepped and Polished. You can submit a question during or after the show at radio@preppedandpolished.com. We love hearing from you. Let's get to it. So, a lot of students over the years, they keep making the same exponent mistakes. And I want to go through some of the exponent rules so you don't make the same mistakes I see kids make over and over again. So let's get these rules straight once and for all. Now, one of the exponent rules students confuse is if you have x squared times x to the third power and you have the same coefficient and you're just multiplying x squared times x to the third, students will multiply the exponents. So they say x squared times x to the third power is x to the sixth power, but that's wrong. What you do is when multiplying two of the same coefficient, you are adding the exponents. So x squared times x to the third power is 2 plus 3, x to the fifth. So you add the exponents when you multiply exponents with the same bases. Another exponent rule students often confuse is if you take, say, for example, x to the third power and you raise it to the fourth power. So it's x to the third, parentheses, to all to the fourth. What they often do wrong is they'll add these exponents. So they'll say that's x to the seventh. That's wrong. Let's get this straight once and for all. If you have an exponent, you're raising it to another exponent, that's when you multiply the exponents. So it's x to the 12th, final answer. So just to recap, x to the third power raised to the fourth power is 3 times 4, x to the 12. Now sometimes students make this mistake. If you have a division with exponents, if you have the same base for a numerator and denominator, let's just say, for example, x to the 6th divided by x to the third. Sometimes students will say, well, I'm going to divide these exponents. So what they do wrong is they'll take x to the 6th divided by x to the third, and they'll take 6 divided by 3, and then they'll say 6 divided by 3 is 2, x to the second power, final answer. But this is completely wrong. Never do that. What you want to do when you divide exponents is you subtract the exponents from one another. So x to the 6th divided by x to the third power is the same thing as saying x to the 6 minus 3, x to the third power, final answer. So just to recap, x to the 6th power divided by x to the third power is x to the third power, final answer. And one last error I want to show you is that if you have, in parentheses, 2x, okay, and you raise it to the third power, what students often do wrong is they'll apply the exponent only to the x, not the 2. So what they do wrong is they'll say, well, 2x in parentheses raised to the third power is 2x cubed, 2x to the third power, final answer. That's completely false. Never do that. What you're going to do is apply the exponent to each entity in the parentheses. So the answer is you raise the third power to the, you apply it to the 2 and to the x. So 2x in parentheses to the third is 2 to the third times x to the third, which is 8x to the third power, final answer. So just to recap, 2x in parentheses raised to the third is 8x to the third power, final answer. So just go over those 4 rules I taught you. You shouldn't make any careless mistakes when you see an exponent problem on the SAT or ACT. All right, good luck on your test. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. And this wraps up our show, number 97. Avoid these 4 common SAT, ACT math exponent rule mistakes, and keep your channel on and be on the lookout for our next podcast episode, number 98, with Mike Berry of Family Confidential blog, where we talk about children of adoption. And remember to access all our podcast episodes. Go to preppedandpolished.com/podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast, For more information, check out preppeddandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.